communicating weather information. So a lot of this is going to be kind of leading up to, and I'll touch a few things on, during and after a storm, but Morgan and Ned will have a lot more too during and after a storm as well. So getting right into how we communicate via social media during a winter weather situation. We're going to talk, about various topics here. There's a lot you can do. Talk about timing, uncertainty. Mixed precip events are interesting, and it seems like we get a lot more of those than we used to up here. Talking about headlines, showing headlines. A little plug there for the enhanced data display. If any of you haven't heard of that, I'm a big fan. And they have some great images that you can kind of just generate based on what you want to see, and then screen capture those and use those as images to put on social media. You want to talk about issuing watches days in advance, warnings and advisories, also upgrades, keeping people up to date over the social media wire as far as those are concerned. Graphics. I'll say this: our office is very big on creating good graphics lately, especially the last year or two. We've had a big push in this office. I don't know if it's a competitive thing or what it is, and maybe the transition to PowerPoint, but issuing good quality graphics has become at the forefront of one of the things we do here. And then, snowfall totals and maps. MMWB's multimedia weather briefings. We did some research here on a lot of these statistics of our own, especially from last winter, and I got some things to share there. And then, even though it's not really about communicating via social media, I did want to touch on workload and our philosophy on workload during a kind of a high impact event. That'll be at the end. So we'll get into expressing timing and uncertainty to folks on social media. We can do this in multiple ways. Text updates are great. They're very quick and easy to do, obviously, and those can get you can get a lot of information out to folks that way. Graphical forecasts, though, our office is a huge fan of doing a lot of graphical forecasts, but they're not quite as quick, so sometimes that's an important part of it. You got a lot going on. You got tasks you're working on as well, short-term grid updates, things like that. But good graphics can provide people with a ton of information in a very fast and understandable way. I'll give you an example graphic here, and I just want you to take a few seconds to just look at it and analyze it and realize how much you can learn just from a few seconds of looking at a graphic coming up here. And here's one that we issued talking about timing, mainly here. Heavy snow moving north into Minnesota, kind of lines indicating what time to expect the snow to reach those areas. And then I like the simplicity of this graphic too, just with the low icon here just saying Storm Center at 8:45, 6 a.m., noon. Just very basic for the public to understand what they're looking at here. So that's just one example of timing, a good way to get timing across to folks graphically. This one isn't, too time intensive as long as you've gotten used to kind of taking screen captures from AWIPS and getting those over, and we send them out via PowerPoint. So that's how we've transitioned at this office here. Uncertainty, we've got some good examples of how to show some uncertainty. I like this graphic a lot. In the upper right-hand corner here, we've got the main panel where we're talking about uncertainty with the low pressure center. Track still uncertain, we mentioned that. We talk about snow potential would be higher to the north if it goes, to the north or south and so on. I also like how we wanted to show the winter storm watch, and we didn't just focus on our own area here. I think that a lot of the public, and maybe this is an opinion, but they don't know, what our CWAs are and what our boundaries are. So, lately, especially the last few months, we've turned toward not just showing our own CWA, as long as the products are valid at that time. That's the one thing people are concerned with. But the one thing about this graphic, the snowfall amounts, to me, if we're this uncertain, where we're talking about the uncertainty, maybe not showing specific amounts in this narrow of a range is probably not the best idea. I'm fine with just showing maybe like heaviest potential here, lesser out here, and so on and so forth. So that's one thing I'll be preaching to my office coming into this winter season here about how we do graphics. It kind of bit us a few times that we told people out here in western Minnesota 6 to 9, and because of this uncertainty, it didn't happen, and some folks weren't too happy. So maybe if we're not that confident, you don't have to start putting amounts in a couple days ahead of time. All right. quick note about multimedia weather briefings. I'll talk more about those later, but I mean those are great ways to express timing and uncertainty among other things. But we reserve those mainly for those higher impact events because they can be very time consuming, but also very helpful for people seeking, DSS for what they need. For mixed precipitation events, well, graphics, I think, can best demonstrate where to expect the various types of mixed precipitation. It's just harder in words to describe where you're expecting transitions to occur. Plus, people aren't going to sit there and read a huge long thing about where to expect rain, snow, sleet, things like that. So a very recent example, actually just 2 days ago, we've already started to get kind of into our winter season up here. On Sunday, we had accumulating snow in the northern part of our CWA, mix kind of right through the Twin Cities, and then rain to the south. And we've kind of recently just been learning on our own PowerPoint's ability to create kind of an overlaid image here, and this is just kind of nice. We could show, the different colors of what to expect for people. So people looking at this can get a good idea for Sunday what they could have expected. And I really liked how we showed that simply, that snow mixing into the rain. And we have also ideas about how to show how it will unfold, including timing a mixed precipitation event like this graphic from last winter, just showing here on the left-hand side. These are screen captures of a high-resolution short-term model that has the ability to display precipitation type as one of the images in AWIPS. So we screen capture these, we put some timestamps on them, and people can quickly get the sense, where that rain-snow line is going to be and where it's going to move and how that event's going to play out. So a big fan of those high-res short-term models, as long as you are confident in that particular model and its forecast. So that can be a very nice, useful tool. And there's my plug there about that high-res models again. So as far as headlines are concerned, I asked myself, did your office just issue a new headline? Well, let people know on social media and show it graphically if you can. And I think there's a pretty easy way to do this. This is one that I threw on social media last, I believe it was April, because winter never ended up here last year. But I just went to that enhanced data display site. I really like it for how clear and crisp the images are. I zoomed right into my area and just laid on the Google map and then the warnings and the headlines. And so quickly could show that we had a blizzard warning in our west and then advisories, things like that. It's accurate with our neighbors because it's always current. Just put a note on Facebook about the update as of 2 p.m. Talked about the different colors and what they represent on the map. This graphy, not even a graphy, just a quick. I only put this on social media, didn't even put it on our website or anything. It got a lot of attention, over 28,000 reach, 176 shares. And it took all of only 5 minutes to do, just simply using that snipping tool on that enhanced data display website. Real quick and easy to do. So something that I think we'll see a lot more of out of our office this upcoming winter. Here's just a quick example of a text update. Good information. We expanded our winter storm warning and so on and so forth, but still I think graphically to show, or spatially to show where people can expect that blizzard warning versus winter storm warning and so on is still the preferred way if you have the time to be able to do that on shift. More about graphical forecasts. Like I said, a recent point of emphasis here is to create good graphics. And I think that's critical for social media use. People love our graphics on social media. We get a lot of responses. I'm sure many of you do too. Graphics draw a lot of the attention that we do and that we get. I think PowerPoint makes it much easier. We used to use a program called FXC. I don't know if everybody out there used that or other programs, but it just seems like a lot easier to use once you learn how to use it, and you can just make better looking images in PowerPoint. And like I just said on that headlines graphic that I sent, it's not, don't hesitate to put graphics just on social media. It doesn't have to go out as a graphical forecast on your website. It doesn't have to necessarily be for a news headline. Some people in my office, I'm trying to get them to realize, you can just do things for social media in this regard and don't have to necessarily put it on our website just because you wanted to create a graphic. You can just send out a quick tidbit of information graphically on our social media sites. And then don't forget to take advantage of that short-term graphical forecast option. That's another one we've been doing a lot more of. Sometimes, during a winter weather event, it was beneficial to us to kind of issue a generic standard weather story, maybe a 5-day forecast, and then use the short-term graphy option as the one where we're constantly updating throughout the event and then sending out new information in that one. While that other graphy is kind of low, it doesn't require a lot of extra work because it's kind of set with a 5-day forecast. It doesn't need a whole lot of attention or updating. As far as snowfall amounts, of course, everyone wants to know how much snow, so we want to give them, our predictions there as best as we can. Here's kind of an old way, as I mentioned, that FXC program, and I think this is one that I did, so it's not not the greatest here. Looks like maybe a third grader drew these lines. Oh yeah, it was me. I'm not the most coordinated with drawing on a screen. So instead of doing something like this with PowerPoint, it's just a lot more user-friendly. I think we can do a different method, something like this, where we just took a screen capture out of GFE and used PowerPoint to issue it. You could have done the same with FXC, I suppose, but we developed, or I don't know if it was our office, but we got hold of a tool that allows us to run a storm total grid that also takes our neighbors' snowfall amounts into account. So I know collaboration is important. You want to make sure that you're collaborated. Some folks want to just issue our snowfall forecast for our CWA, and that's fine too. But I think it's nice if we can get our neighbors and get everybody collaborated and just show kind of the overall for the whole area what the forecast is. So this is one example we did last April when we started to transition to using this tool more for snowfall forecasts. And then lastly, another option which we haven't really used yet, using the enhanced data display again as far as grabbing snowfall forecasts. I just grabbed this earlier today, so there's not much as far as in the forecast for the eastern Dakotas into Minnesota. But just to show you, if you haven't used this tool before, very user-friendly. You can overlay total new snow as far as one of the fields out of the grid forecast, and then what time you want from now until that end time to show the snowfall forecast. So again, you don't have to worry about stepping on your neighbor's toes as far as if you are saying more snow than they really had in the forecast or less. And this way it just shows truly what all our offices are forecasting put together. And that's very quick to grab again. So kind of an all-encompassing, sticking to the graphics. We talk about we want to show headlines, we want to show amounts and timing, precipitation type. Well, we had one last April, and you can be the judge if it's too busy with all that. One that we issued here on the upper left, we have the headlines, the clearly labeled winter storm warning and winter weather advisory. It might be a little hard to read from the cities and locations, but hopefully the folks around here kind of know the counties and things like that on the map. And as far as snowfall amounts, again, this is our GFE grab with our neighbors in collaboration, which was great. And then just threw some quick labels up so people could see what to expect. And then on the bottom, just from left to right across the bottom there, what to expect as time goes on from rain to snow. So big fan of this graphy. A couple things, maybe easier to read labels and things like that could improve upon there. But other than that, I thought this one was a good one, and it got a lot of attention, primarily probably because it was a late April winter storm warning, and people, it was kind of at the forefront of the news around this area at the time. But we still had, almost 900 shares and over 100,000 on the reach, so I haven't seen anything like that as far as any text updates, and I just think you can get a ton of information from a graphic like this. Oh, a quick thing about snowfall amounts here. If the event, it's winding down or it's over, but we're not going to be done communicating that weather info, you want to send out promptly your PNS with snowfall amounts. Of course, well, don't be afraid to, share that via social media. We get a lot of snow removal folks using social media now to talk to us who want to see that stuff on our social media sites. So, well, we'll give it to them if that's what they want. So we'll share our PNS with them there. And then the graphic. Another efficient way to show spatially snowfall amounts, this website that just takes in the Cooperative Weather Observer snowfall amounts. Usually the morning after the storm is when we're able to actually use this to our advantage and just take a quick screen capture. It's got the nice scale. and showing how much snow fell across the area. So we're a big fan of this method as well, showing snowfall amounts. Couple multimedia weather briefing theories here. Keep those MMWBs short, at or under 2 minutes. And you might think I'm crazy saying that. You wonder how could I possibly? I wondered that myself. I have trouble keeping them under 5 minutes at times, but we've really, done a big push to keep them very basic lately. Really, really basic for the general public perspective. Here's one that we issued late April again this past year. 2 minutes 11 seconds was the briefing. So the forecaster did that. Pat on the back for him. How the heck did he do it so quickly? Did he just talk really, really fast? No. Basically what it is, he covered the basic things, the headlines, the amounts, covered timing, and he covered the impacts. He didn't get too bogged down in anything else. So based on the retention statistics that I looked at for many of our briefings that we issued, we should probably display the most important information first. That's when you have the most viewership, is right at the beginning of the video. People are probably looking for snowfall amounts in their headlines and the impacts pretty much more than anything else. I think, in my opinion, we should show less or no meteorology heavy, as I call it, maps. Things like water vapor and things like that are great for us, but the public, I don't know. And based on the retention statistics of some of our briefings that we did show that, we lost a lot of people when we started showing maps like that. They would just say, "Oh, I don't know what that is, so I'm out of here. This is not what I wanted. This is not what I'm looking for." So show that basic information the public wants to see. And then my last little note here about workload. Well, we found the workload to be pretty substantial for these larger storms, especially with all the reports and the pictures that we get. And then we try to take a lot of those reports here, as long as we believe them, and Morgan will talk more about this, but and send those out in LSRs. So our office philosophy coming into this winter, we're going to not hesitate to have extra staffing on hand if we need to deal with social media, plus all the other duties that we have here in the Weather Service. So one question I ask you, maybe you think about and talk to your folks around your office is, if there's a storm going on, should we spend less time on that long-term forecast and have that person help with social media, or just dedicating more into social media than something like the long-term forecast during an event? I think so here, and I think that's something we're going to practice here, but that's just a question to think about for all of you out there. Quick summary here. Make sure you're active on social media, especially leading up to that event, during and after, of course. If you're concerned about posting too much on social media, I just don't think I would be, especially for a major upcoming event. People want to see pretty constant updates that you have about the storm. Offer good weather information, be clear and concise and honest, talk about uncertainty. I think that's one thing that my office lacks. We're going to try to do that more often this winter. Talk more about uncertainty and what we're seeing from the forecast that we update leading up to the storm. We're going to do that over text updates, graphics, and MMWBs. So that's all I have. Thank you. We'll hold the questions for the end. There's the email address that I have in case you wanted to talk later as well. Please don't hesitate to contact me. So I will see if I can hand this over to Morgan.
Constraints and travel restrictions, doing more online training, posting multi-media training briefings, and doing PowerPoint templates is pretty much essential. So one thing you've got to touch on is basically letting the public know what you want. I think we've all gotten reports that just say, we've got 3 inches here, and you don't know where here is because their profile's private. You don't know when the 3 inches fell. You don't know what's happening now, so you have to ask them and reply to them and get an answer before you can send out the LSR. But if you send out this kind of information, they know what they need to send you ahead of time, which will save you time collecting reports, and you won't have to pry for information. Also, measuring snow is a very tricky thing. When you get those reports that you're like, this person measuring a drift next to their house or underneath a tree, and it just seems totally unreasonable. If you let them know, you need to measure in a flat, open area away from buildings and trees, on a plastic white cutting board, kind of like a makeshift snowboard or something. That can help out a lot and try and cut back on those phony reports that we sometimes get. And this is just an example that I kind of threw together, and you'll have other types of winter weather that you want to show people how they should measure and report it. But you can, like I said earlier, make PowerPoint templates or multimedia weather briefings to train them how to do it. And you can post on your Facebook, Twitter, and Top News of the Day story section just before an event to give everybody a refresher. And then maybe tomorrow when they get the snow, they'll think, oh yeah, I saw that. I should go post on their wall, what it looks like in my backyard. And obviously it's not going to reach everybody, but nonetheless, it'll help. Also, reinforce how you want the reports to be sent in, like I said earlier, because sometimes they get lost. People don't put a hashtag. We're going to emphasize for people to use our hashtag SWIWX for Southern Wisconsin weather, or to post on our Facebook wall, because it might get lost out there in the Twitter sphere somewhere. Just putting the word snow in it doesn't mean we're going to see it. Also, another thing we're going to try and emphasize this year is send us a picture. While those aren't always truthful, they do help out a lot, and then you can see, like, oh, there's their ruler, it really is that deep. You don't know what they're measuring it on, but it's still a quick way to get that information. Maybe get a geo tag on it, and you can get a cool picture of a Yeti in the snow. So, and people just enjoy seeing their picture on your Facebook wall or seeing you retweet it. It kind of makes them feel important and like they're really helping out, which is important, so then we get more reports. We like to ask for reports several times during an event, and we use it for multiple things. Here, one of our forecasters, Steve Davis, was wondering what to do with this advisory, and he didn't really have a way to find out what the roads were like in a certain area, so he just sent out a feeler asking people what it was like out there, and he got a lot of responses and was able to make an informed decision about his advisory using that information. Also, another tactic we use is just giving people information about what's happening here. We got dusting here at the office. What's happening near you? And you can see Jeffrey Dufour there said measurements as requested 38, 24, 36. So you get a little bit of humor in there in case work is getting too stressful for you. But also down here, Katie Austin, who is someone who works a lot with the transportation department near Madison, gave us detailed information about the roads in Madison, what's happening there. They're having slide-off, and that's become very valuable to us. I'm not sure how many people use targeting or know how to use it, so I'm just going to go through using that real quick. And that's particularly helpful in severe weather because storms are isolated, but it can be also useful in winter weather. So if you just act like you're going to post something normal on Facebook and click in the section that says write something, you'll see in the middle here a little target sign. If you click the target sign, you'll see add targeting. And then you're able to select different ways to target your audience, and I'm pretty sure we'll just choose location. And then after that, you choose city, United States, and type in the cities that you want to target. You can do more than one, and it tells you how many people you're going to reach or try to reach by targeting it. And this is just one example. We didn't do this last winter, actually. I don't think we really knew about it, but we plan to do it this winter. So here we asked for reports from Portage, which we don't really have many people there. In fact, it only reached 187 people on Facebook. But we got 3 quality reports that we used, and we need it for that area, and we verified a warning. So that was really useful in that case. Another thing we're going to try to do is use pictures to ask for information for them to just switch it up, trying to grab their attention, maybe increase engagement a little bit from the regular old status, how much snow is falling near you. This way we can say this is what it looks like at our office, send us a picture of what it looks like near you, let us know your snow amounts. Just a way to kind of switch it up, give them information, grab their attention, and get their reports. Especially by now, I think everybody has their own way of getting reports from social media, but nonetheless, I just thought I'd share what we do. Pretty much everyone at our office, I think, has converted to looking at Facebook to look for reports from Facebook. We don't use Hootsuite for Facebook, and I don't know if there's another dashboard out there that anybody else uses for Facebook. If so, let us know. I don't know if there's a blessed one out there, but this way you don't miss private messages, which we do get a number of those during an event. Comments on posts on our wall. Sometimes Hootsuite would just freeze up and we'd miss things. This way we see everything. On Twitter, we do like to use Hootsuite to monitor Twitter for reports, and we have a column for local weather hashtags like hashtag SWIWX and hashtag WIWX, and also the surrounding states since we are near some borders. We have a column for mentions in case somebody's trying to get a hold of us directly, direct messages too, and a column for local media because a lot of times they get reports and that's the quickest way of us finding out from them that they got a local report. We also search for keywords within a certain radius of the office, although I believe I've heard that that only includes the top tweets, not necessarily all of the tweets. And you also get kind of spammed with things like if you search for funnel, for funnel cloud, you end up with a lot of people talking about funnel cakes, especially during the fair. And on YouTube, I've personally been guilty of this. I forget to check the comment section. And while we haven't got any reports on YouTube yet, I imagine once we start to all get more popular on YouTube, we'll start seeing more reports come in that way, and just got to remember to check that out. So, as always, we have to be on the lookout for bogus information. And sometimes it can be an honest mistake with a snow report. Someone doesn't realize that they're measuring in a bad spot. You have to check, is it similar to other local reports or the radar estimate? Is it usually someone you get a reliable report from or not? You can ask them, how did you measure this? Were you away from the trees? Were you in a deep spot? And also, if they do send in a picture, you always have Google image search to use to figure out, is this fake, which I don't know if that happens as much in the winter as during things like Sandy or during tornadoes, but it's a possibility. And when in doubt, just ask for more information or use your best judgment. And, I don't think it'd be very hard to keep away from, offending them or interrogating them. If you feel like they're starting to get offended, it's probably best to just let it go. Don't want to lose a valued customer there. And also one thing is sometimes we have multiple people checking Facebook at a time in the office, and two people see the same report and LSR it, and the other person doesn't know it, and so we have two LSRs of the same thing out there because people didn't speak up. And then the person issuing the WSW might not know that, roads are really slick out in Milwaukee, and they might be ready to cancel the freezing rain advisory. So it's important that when you get that report, you share it with everybody in the office. And it, just helps everybody be situationally aware. And one thing very important, is just always thank people sending in the report. Always reply to them if you have time. Just a simple thank you doesn't take much time, and it'll earn us loyal reporters and reliable reporters, and it'll help us build our relationship. And the more they like us, the more likely they are to share our information with their friends and family, and help us get even more reports. And a couple ways that we do that, and if it's busy, if you're short-staffed, obviously you don't have time for this, but if you can or after an event, it's nice to post things like this, and it makes people feel appreciated, and I'm 3 west of Beaver Dam, look at that, like my report made it on the Facebook page. It'll just give people, makes people feel a little bit important to what we're doing here, and they are an essential part of our operation. Another thing, and we haven't done this during winter weather, but during a nice afternoon here when storms were moving out of the area, people got a bunch of really nice pictures. And rather than just replying to them and saying, nice picture, and liking it, we downloaded them and put them in a collage real quick and, asking their permission, and posted on our Facebook wall and Twitter, and people really like that. both the people who sent in the pictures and other people who just thought they were cool pictures really liked it. And also another thing we're trying to do is with people who share pictures on our wall. We share them if they're, really good. We share them on our own Facebook wall so they get more visibility. And then that person, they really enjoy it. And we've been told that by a couple of people. It's cool to see their picture on a, weather service wall. So, without further ado, I will pass it on to my coworker, Ed Townsend. He's going to talk about winter weather hazards, the different types that you might experience. So, here's Ed.
All right, thanks, Morgan. If you have trouble hearing me, feel free to shout out. This is Ollie, forecaster, providing some hopefully actionable information with his forecast. So I'm just going to go over different ways to highlight winter hazards and impacts. The two primary ways to distribute this information, be it simple reports and Facebook posts to more graphically driven posts. It's important that we also try to make these actionable and informative to really get the most bang for our buck and be effective. Quick shout out to Weather Ready Nation, as doing this way is part of our Weather Ready Nation initiative, specifically to provide specific and actionable information. This will help us get our message out either directly through social media, our website, or indirectly from the media themselves if they retweet this information or share a post. Some possible wintertime hazards and impacts to highlight. There's plenty to do. Snowfall rates, blowing and drifting snow, ice accumulation, and the impact that could have on trees, especially if it fully encompasses trees and limbs fall off onto cars and houses, as well as go over impacts to the road, slippery and slick roads, wind chill, as well as updates to the forecast and snow totals, etc. But is this really an exhaustive list? No, there's a lot more we could discuss, talk about the differences between dry snow and wet snow. Wet snow, you're going to have a greater risk of power outages. It's hard to shovel. They call it hard to detect snow up here. With dry snow, blowing and drifting could be of prime concern. Also, another thing to touch upon is the melting and refreezing processes that occur for many days after a storm. And they will only end once the snow and moisture is completely melted and the roads are dry after being properly treated. Another thing that important to note is posts that relay actionable and informative information are the ones that get results via sense of urgency that is put on part to the users that see them, such that they then take the necessary steps to mitigate the adverse effects of the hazardous weather they encounter. So that is ultimately what we want by providing these posts on Facebook or tweets with Twitter. Going further, communicating real-time versus long-fuse messages. Real-time I consider as the event is occurring, or shortly thereafter if it's upstream and coming into your CWA. Long-fuse messages is more to do with more than 12 hours or a day or two ahead in advance. Now there are pros and cons to each one, as well as how you're going to disseminate that message on Facebook and Twitter. Before we get into that, let's talk about some existing products that work in the social media platform. GraphicCast and Nowcast and Weather Stories, they're really graphically driven and actually translate pretty well. Personal information statements, PNSs, not so much, though there are ways to help translate that and make it more easier to digest. There's websites where you can copy the PNS in to, and then I'll switch it to a sentence case instead of all caps lock. And that may be something you want to do, especially since it's quick and dirty. The other thing you want to go over is Facebook Insights. And this really will depend on your audience as far as post types, as well as when you want to post these messages. When it comes to real-time messages, time of day really gets thrown out the window. You want to make it as informative as possible, and if it's 10 p.m. or midnight. You just try to make it as relevant and as timely as possible. Whereas with a long fuse message, if there's an upcoming winter storm, you might want to try to get your most bang for the buck and schedule a tweet or Facebook post to go out when you're going to have a greater reach. For instance, maybe 6 to 8 p.m. depending on when you're going to post that. Just a little pros and cons regarding the different types of posts. You'll see that status as well as photos usually do the best when it comes to post clicks as well as likes, comments, and shares. We have found links do not fare as well, especially when it comes to engaging our users and facilitating discussion. Even though we do create top news stories here at our office during the event and updating relatively constantly every 4 to 6 hours in the midst of it, we found that more so just posting a picture from it fares a lot better. And one of the things we like to do, instead of just posting a link to the top news story, we actually post a photo from the top news story. That way, Facebook treats it as a photo, and it's a lot wider and bigger, and we just insert the link inside somewhere in that message, in that unique caption. So, actionable and informative posts and tweets. What exactly does that mean? Well, to me, it means to give information that is specific and clear that gives the users confidence to take action, or at least help them make a decision. And that's really what we want to do. So essentially, how can we relay this weather info to elicit or provoke a response from them? And I think the way to do that is by adding actionable and informative information, and that's value beyond the basic meteorology or weather fundamentals. With social media now, everyone's on Twitter and Facebook providing basic snow and temperature forecasts and information, but it's important for us to then go further and give info that gives them confidence to take an action or help make a decision. For example, providing timing information, focusing on areas with the greatest expected impact, local impacts, whether it be visibility, slick roads, talking about a specific interstate corridor. That is the real way to try to get our information beyond the basic meteorology. So you might be able to think of an existing weather follower that you even post on your Facebook wall or mention you in a tweet, and they may even use your own graphic cast. So we can actually go further and beyond that as we have greater resources, and frankly, we are trying to be the local weather authority here. That is so to provide the what, the where, the when, the why, and the details. And as far as good communication, that is the way we have to do it, by giving them information with specific details and providing a message that is clear. This will also make them be more appreciative of that message. Another thing to do is leverage your own experience. What does it take to elicit a response from you and your family? And another thing is to just build trust with the users. We want to make them want to come back for more and to participate by providing reports as well as status updates. And this can actually take some time and can be done through frequent posts and updates. This will then instill confidence in the users. In the end, the users must see that we provide information that's reliable and provides these users with high quality information for them to accept it and for them to employ it. So at the end, it's these value added status updates and posts that will instill confidence in the user. Some ways to help is to use images with radar, satellite, and surface obs, Google Earth, GIS, making a snow amount map, especially when it comes to hazardous weather. Some MKX specific tips we use here in Milwaukee. For images with an expiration date, like in a graphic cast or an outcast, we consider frequently updating it, like every 10 minutes, almost as much as the new volume scan is available, to refresh the radar image. We don't necessarily have to update the text and the elements, but more so just so there's not a expiration date and it stays up to date. Another thing is to just spread the wealth, whether you have to use an intern, an HMT, or a SUE, to try and update and follow social media. Just going over some examples. Here's an example of blowing snow. We didn't really do it in this one, but the thing that we would like to try to do, especially going forward, is to highlight interstate corridors. So, for instance, I-94 from Milwaukee to Madison, highlight the road conditions or vice versa, going on I-43 from Milwaukee to Green Bay, so we'd stop at Sheboygan. So in this one, we actually, in the text, quantified the wind gusts that people would be dealing with and the blowing and drifting snow that will be impacting travel through Friday morning. This is more of a long fuse example. Next is mixed precip. We already covered, it was covered a little bit earlier, but we try to make these really easy to grasp. So we have a snow accumulation map on the left, and on the right, a radar image. With the advent of dual pol, it's really easy to discriminate where our rain snow mix and all snow is on a radar image. So this is something we can update and be fairly confident where the rain snow line is, and that's something we should take advantage of. Spread roads, that is something we definitely would like to cover. In this instance, we had some freeze and drizzle, and it was mainly occurring on untreated roads where we're seeing the worst of it, and that was due to not only the light freeze and drizzle, but because of the wet roads freezing over when the cooler temperatures hit overnight. Here's another example of visibility as a main impact. Here, visibility was reduced to less than a mile at times with some of the bands of the snow showers, so we try to make use of surface obs and leverage them to highlight where these snow showers were moving and how much the visibility would be reduced. This is another one. I believe it's the last one of heavy snow. Here, the heavy snow was more along Madison. We tried to depict the timing of how far it would transition and progress to the southeast. In regard to timing, this is just another example for the winter storm watch that was being on Tuesday. So this was more of a broad brush example. So we were a few days out, and so we were just trying to highlight the specific areas of greatest impact, mostly in our extreme southeast. Just to touch upon uncertainty, here is an example of showing low pressure systems as they move to the northeast. Here we try to highlight the time frame that we were looking for heaviest snow. Of course, not all the time will we have this great agreement between the four numerical models. So even then, it's a good time to show. We have generally received positive review or feedback with this. Of course, this is kind of a controversial area because some may have the opinion that the public doesn't want to actually see low pressure systems, let alone low pressure tracks and these ensemble-like graphics. Lastly, before a hazardous weather event is coming up, we like to issue a little post that describes the watch warning advisory criteria. We frequently get requests, what is a blizzard warning, what is a winter storm warning, or a watch? And this helps try and eliminate some of those questions that appear on our wall. That is the end of my section. If anyone have any questions regarding the earlier one, as well as Morgan's, please go ahead.